And this conversation occurs 5 times a day. So in essence, it is the relationship that we build with God constantly throughout the day. A reminder of who we are, who we're dependent on. And as long as we're conscious of God throughout the day, one of the main things that the Quran speaks of is a word called taqwa, or God consciousness. God consciousness, just constantly being aware of God. I guess the only way to explain that in any terms to understand is while I was driving here, and I know this is on TV, but if we're speeding a little bit, you're going just a little bit fast, you're coming down 675 and the speed limit's 65, and you may be doing 75, because you got to get to the council here before 8 o'clock. So I'm not aware, I'm not thinking about it, I'm not going any faster than a lot of the traffic, but all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye I see a police car. What do I automatically do? I automatically slow down. I didn't slow down because of the police car. Because had I not seen him, I would have still been going 80 miles an hour. But I slowed down because I realized all of a sudden, I came to my senses, I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. That consciousness is what keeps us constantly on your toes. Watch out, watch what you say, watch where you're going, watch who you hang out with. What are you thinking about? It's not easy. It's not meant to be easy, because there's always another force pulling us in the opposite direction, but it's that taqwa, that God consciousness that keeps us aware. Ramadan, a month of fasting from sunrise to sunset for 30 lunar days. Once a year, we abstain from food, drink, intimate relationship with spouses, and that is a very important step of Islam. It's one of the best times of the year for Muslims. It really is, because it develops a part of us that sometimes goes dormant during the year. Not only is this a time of taqwa, God consciousness, but you are constantly in awareness during that month. You could be at work and it's the first day of Ramadan, and everybody's like, hey, let's go to lunch. And you're like, yeah, I can't go. I can't go. Because now you're aware of what you're putting in your mouth. You're aware of where you're going. You're aware when it's time to pray. You're constantly aware. You're aware. You're constantly aware. But sometimes we forget. And that's where we believe God is forgiving. One of his qualities. Now, God in the Quran never describes himself physically. He doesn't say, I am this big, I'm this tall, my hair is this color. God doesn't describe himself. God, we can't conceive God. But he describes his attributes, his qualities. And one of the qualities, there are several, but one of the main ones is the most merciful, the most forgiving. Because when we make a mistake, when we forget the police car is watching us, when we forget that God is constantly monitoring us, we realize that we made a mistake. And that's where we come out of it and ask God for forgiveness. And because God is most gracious, most merciful, it's forgiven. As long as your intention is to actually to not go back to the sin. So that God consciousness is very important in Islam, and it's constantly mentioned throughout the Quran. So we know, for example, that God created everything, right? We agree with that for all the people who believed in God. God created everything. We believe that God created time, right? No, it's okay. Now I'm going to ask the crowd, what is time? Come on. Give me a hand. Where's our energy this morning? There's donuts, there's coffee, there's milk, and no energy. So much for Dunkin' Donuts. What is time? I'm going to pick people from the crowd if you don't answer. There you go. Got a volunteer.
Rate of change. Things changing.
Okay.
Things stay the same. There's no time.
Okay, I'll buy that. Anybody else?
Dimension.
Where are you hiding? There you are. A dimension? Okay. Well, time is simply a position. In our solar system, everything revolves around the sun. When the Earth revolves one full time around the sun, we call that 1 year, all the way around the sun. Okay. when the Earth rotates one time, that's 1 day. Okay. Now, it takes 365 days for the Earth to go around the sun. How long does it take for Mercury, the planet closest to the sun, to go around the sun? Mercury is the god of speed. It takes them 3 or 4 months. In 3 or 4 months, that planet goes around the sun. Okay, so 1 year in Mercury is 3 months, 4 months. Now, what if he lives in Pluto, the most distant planet in our galaxy? It takes 250 of our years for that planet to go around the sun. Okay, so time is relative in our galaxy, where we are. Depends where we are on the planet and the Earth. In our galaxy, depends on time. Okay. Now, God created all of this, and we can perceive. We can see our solar system from Hubble telescopes and our little satellites and whatever we have, and we are one planet. This small little blue marble planet amongst 9 planets and our huge sun. But all of these planets, all of them, all the planets in our solar system make up just a fraction of the space in our galaxy. The sun, our sun, this huge sun that we can't even stare at, makes up 99.9% of the mass in our galaxy. And our sun that we see every day, that brights our lives up, is called a dwarf star. It's a small star. It's a tiny star. There are other stars in our galaxy. One of them I can't even pronounce, but it's VV A, is 500,000 times larger than our sun. It's 500,000 times larger than our sun. I'm not talking just, we are tiny. We are very, 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 very small in the universe. And our universe keeps expanding, keeps growing. So we realize God has to be bigger and greater than his creation. He has to be bigger and greater than his creation. And it reminds me of a story, a little joke, where a man was, stressed out businessman. He was stressed out at work, and he was dreaming. And in his dream, he saw this bright, bright light. And he asked. He said, "Is this God? I think that's God." So he said, "God, what is time to you? Time?" And God said, "1 of my seconds is equivalent to millions of your years." He said, "Wow, how great you must be." And he says, "What is money to you?" And God said, "1 of my pennies is equivalent to millions of your dollars." So the man thought for a second. He is struggling at work. His business is failing. He said, "God, can I borrow 1 of your pennies?" So God said, "Yeah, I'll be back in a sec." Time is dependent on where we are in the universe. God is not dependent on time. In Islam, we believe God created everything, from the beginning to the end. We believe that everything was written before he even started creation. Everything was already planned. We know this because whether you look at the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, God talks about things that are going to happen. He talks about things that happened and things that are happening. We know, for example, that Jesus Christ will come back. We know about the Antichrist. We know that there'll be a day of judgment. How did Noah know to build an ark? God just didn't tell him the night before. God knew there was a flood going to be coming. How did Lot know to get out of the city of Sodom? He knew. We knew. He knows the future. He knows the past. Everything in Islam, we believe, is already written. Okay? Now, in Islam, one of the greatest things about being Muslim is that we are always encouraged to be best, to do the best you can be at everything, regardless of what it is, whether you are an employee, a parent, a student, always